So today I want to take us through a few things, but I want to start with an introduction. So for those of you who want to know who I am, my name is Karen Sparks, and I have functioned in two arenas as it relates to finances. I am a certified divorce financial analyst, and I've had my practice for going on 11 years now. And my role in the family law space is to help those who are coming through divorce and separation to make the decisions that are appropriate in terms of allocation of marital resources and the like. And I have enjoyed that work. But last year, at the urging of a lot of my clients, I founded the Financial Clarity Academy. And I founded that for the purpose of helping women deal with the aftermath of transition with their finances and to focus their thinking, their planning, and everything that goes with that to empower them to step forward into whatever that next iteration of life actually is. And so the focus today is very much in my wheelhouse in the issue of transition, money, how we need to be thinking about it. So what is my why? My why, everyone, today is this. I normally see the decision-making process after it's been done. And what I want to do is help women before that process is done. And why do I say that? Oftentimes, I'm in the process of undoing, reaffirming, reallocating decisions that were not actually in someone's best interest. And now we're at the other end of something where we're having to triage that. And so I want to be a part of the movement that actually educates and informs and provides people with what they need to get there. So let's talk about the concept of transition for just a moment. Transition can be something that happens to you or something that you do. There can be some activity involved in that. And some of the major transitions that we see coming through our life are the big ones: death, divorce, disability, and other things that are connected. But some of those are passive and some of those are active. What we're going to do today is to provide you with a little bit of a roadmap to come through that, to come through some of that confusion. Because a lot of times when we talk about the issue of a budget, we're sort of at the end game with it. Like, do you need an Excel spreadsheet? Do you need an app? Yes, all of those things can be a part of that process, but if your foundational thinking is not where it needs to be, my father used to have a saying, how you start something is basically how you finish it. So if your foundational thinking is not where it needs to be, then the output, whatever you use for your output, is not going to have the intended result. And so as we move into our exercise today, I wanted to share with you a quote from Mark Twain. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And your why, as it comes to finances, is how to best reflect your journey of money, how you organize money, and how you respond to money in a way that fits you and fits everything that's about you. So let us start today with our exercise, and then I'm going to take you through just some hypothetical case studies to show you how to actually apply it. I have developed a model that I call the 3 Ps: purpose, priorities, and plan. This is the application that you want to take yourself through at all times when you're dealing with the subject of how to get yourself on track. And I'm going to break down each one of these subject areas, explain to you what they are, and then we're going to come back through and we're going to do some application work and show you how that actually works in real life. So let's take our first one, which is purpose. One of the things that's important when you think about your approach to organizing your finances is that we tend to look at it in 2 different ways. We tend to look at it as either an action item or things that we're trying to acquire. And what we need to do is consider the fact that those 2 things are really the outset the output, I'm sorry, of your value set, which is in the middle right here. What is important to you? What are the things that drive you? What are the things that are important? You must establish your value set first, because then that feeds how you do what you do and how you plan to acquire the things that you need. It establishes that behavior. A lot of times as women, we don't stop and consider what's important. We immediately get on a treadmill wherever our life is taking us, and we don't make that. Why is the consideration of your value set so very important? Because it's the foundation that's going to drive the organization of your money. And it's going to give purpose to your money. And the other thing that it's going to do is allow you to be fluid as you come through life transitions, because this value set is going to change. And you will see that as we run through just some hypothetical case studies. The value set is meant to be a fluid concept. The value set is meant to allow you to move and groove through your life without being set in stone with one way of handling something, because your purpose and process is definitely going to change over time. So that's our first P. Our next P is priorities. And you need to identify your key, regular financial objectives. Those come in two different iterations that I want to talk about: your short and your long term. And we all have those. It's just that we don't iterate those on a regular basis. And sometimes those get clouded in the busyness of life and the busyness of the things that we need to do. But you need to focus on the short versus the long. What's an example of this? If your goal is to, let's say there's a sport that you're interested in. Maybe you're interested in skiing, and you need to get your equipment together. Okay, that's a short-term goal. You want to save for that equipment. A long-term goal would be something that was put out in our exercise at the front with our word cloud, would be purchasing a home, for example. That's a long-term. But as a part of your planning, as a part of your thinking about how you want to do your budget, that is your first stop. After you just determine what your value set is, your next stop is short versus long. The second thing that we need to feed into the priorities are the concepts of change and the concept of flexibility. Those two things are very, very important. Life is not a static concept. When you're trying to organize your funds to go in a certain direction, you can't let it set in stone in what's going on maybe today, because what's going on today may not be going on 2 years from now. And so you want to think about what you want to do in terms of giving you that room. Flexibility. Allowing things to move in and out of your budget priorities consistent with your value set in order for that process to be relevant. So short versus long, change and flexibility. Our third P is your actual plan and how you're going to manifest that plan and how that's going to move you forward. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that what you are putting together is actually practical for where you are in your life right now. That you're really doing something that's realistic, you're following your value set, you're looking at the range, you're keeping the flexibility, and now you're putting the plan together. And is it practical? You want to make sure that you're including any limitations that you need to be aware of. What do those limitations look like? What are the things that you can see on the horizon that you may need to be looking out for as you're putting that plan together? You want to establish an approach to your budget journey and your finances that reflects who you are, or maybe who you're becoming. But it needs to reflect directly on the approach that you want to take, what is working for you, and maybe what's working for those that are around you in a family or relationship sense. You have to take all that into account, but don't lose yourself in it. This is the thing. Don't lose yourself in it. And then finally, your final act is to nail it. Because at this point, you have developed a process and procedure. You have sat down, you have come through it, and now you're ready to go. So we're going to go back now. And we're going to start with some examples. And I'm going to take you through some, and I'm happy to take some questions at the end on some that are applying to some of you directly. But let's talk about this. So you're in the middle of your life. And now you are faced with your relationship ending. You have not worked significantly during the marriage. You may have done some things prior to your marriage, maybe during your marriage. The agreement was that you were going to stay home, per se. And the objective was to raise the family. Now you are confronted with a situation that you have not had visibility to finances. You don't know what's going on. You are now older. And your ability to enter the workplace is legacy. This is a huge life transition. And how do you apply this model to your reboot? Because you will be rebooting. The relationship is ending. You will have an allocation of assets. It is hoped assets coming to you, but how long and how successful the management of those assets are going to be is falling on you initially. And so let's walk through the purpose model of that. All right, now, what is your new value set right now? What's that value set? You were in a marriage, you were raising a family, you are in the process of that relationship ending, your children or whatever age they are with whatever concerns they have. What is your new value set right now? You really need to stop in the midst of the storm and determine where you are and where you need to be. How does that income that's coming in need to work for you? What is important to you right now? What has been put on the back burner that you may have an opportunity to move forward with, and you need to look at these finances to see whether that's going to happen. What is it that's needed to sustain yourself? What is the value proposition in your life right now? Because it is very, very different. What are your short and long-term goals now? Is there a house involved? Are you going to need to move? Are you going to stay where you are for a short period of time and then transition? How are you looking at that? What are the long-term things that you actually feel that you need to accomplish for yourself first, and then for others around you? And make sure that you keep yourself at the center of that conversation. You are now experiencing change and flexibility. And the need for that is key. Because while the emotional aspect of what you're dealing with is huge, at the end of the day, you are now the captain of your financial ship. And you need to be able to chart that ship in a way that makes sense for you going forward. And this piece right here, when you're particularly coming through that type of life transition, is very important. What is practical for you right now? What really makes sense? Are you riding on the emotional aspects of what's going on, or are you really looking forward to what needs to happen and really trying to put that together? What are limitations that are a part of your life right now? What are those? Is there not enough money? Should you be in the discussions of the divorce, should you be allocating your assets a little bit differently? Are there taxation issues? What are the things that are going to be there? How do you need to approach all this right now? Who needs to be a part of your life? Who needs to be a part of your team? Who is there? Why do they need to be there? And what value can they bring to your life as you're sort of re-executing a plan and trying to move forward? And then the nailing it is the owning of where you are right now in that particular situation, and making sure that you're giving yourself grace and space to start a life you weren't trying to lead, but a life you're in right now, and one that deserves to be successful and deserves to be fulfilling for you. So that's our first example. Our second example is this. You're in a family situation and you're living well, but you're not living well smartly. Your partner manages the money, but essentially your lifestyle is funded by debt and credit. So from the outside looking in, it looks like all is well, but all is not well. So what do we do now? What do we do now? Well, it would be high time, to have a conversation with your partner about what we're doing and why. I say this because in situations of transition where you're having to really deal with it, and you're probably thinking, well, this is not a transition. It's a involuntary transition. It's a transition that if you don't stop it, will put you in a place financially that you don't want to be and that you're going to have difficulty getting out of. So it is actually time to revise that value set with your partner. Revise where you are in this relationship, what is happening, what is the cause and effect on what's being acquired, and what is your access to the finances, and what are you doing, and start to make some critical decisions about that. Looking at your short and long term, which you never probably looked at because you were rolling along as the train was moving forward. But there are some serious issues that need to be dealt with in terms of that. Very serious issues, and they need to be addressed under your priorities. And then you need to get to a point where something more practical is being done, whether that's a plan to get rid of the debt, pay down the debt, re-envision how you live your life and the types of things that you're spending money on. You need to really look at those limitations in terms of how that credit debt functioning for your family is causing issues in a number of areas and will leave you at retirement age in a very tough position. Develop a new approach and then nail that. So now let's look at the issue of a single mom. And this is one that's near and dear to my heart because I am a single mother and was for the majority of my daughter's life. And so how do we make sense of what's important to you in that? So you're a single mom. You may be working more than one job, trying to make ends meet, keep food on the table, take care of your child or children, and keep a roof over your head. But there's stuff that you want to do. Maybe you didn't really finish your education. Life got in the way. Or maybe you partially finished your education, but you want to take a different focus now. It's hard to really see how working these several jobs, keeping the family together, where is that time for you? Where is that money for you? And the thing that normally happens in that context is that you set it aside because it seems so overwhelming, right? This is the time that you need to sit down, because I did this and I'm speaking from personal experience. Sit down. What is my value set? What I need to do? What's important? And I did that. And I'll tell you what the result of that thought process was. My thought process personally was that, first of all, yes, I did need to keep the roof over. We did need to keep things moving for the family. All those things were part of my thing. But I also knew that I had a bigger purpose and a bigger desire. And I named that desire. And that desire was to use the education I had and be a voice in finances, in transition, and for women. And that was a big ask very, very early in my journey after my divorce was done. But I made that, I declared it. And then I looked for opportunities to make it happen. And I also asked for help from close friends and family members who were able to provide that once I figured out what I needed to do to equip myself to be in this space. I identified what I needed to do, how I needed to do it. My daughter was continuing to come through school and mature. And I set guidelines for myself in terms of where I thought I wanted to be at a certain point. And I just kept steady on the path of trying to get there and set those goals. And I gave myself grace and space when other things popped up that I didn't know. Things needed to be fixed, high ticket items that I wasn't including. It didn't take me off course. It just delayed it a bit, but I still stayed on. I thought about what it would mean to switch from working different W-2 positions to actually coming into this work. Was that really practical? Did that make sense for me? What is it that was going to be a big deal? Well, a big deal was that I'm going to be responsible for a lot of things that employment was picking up, like health insurance for both myself and my daughter, and other financial things that were actually taken care of within that paradigm that I was going to need to make sure I could do. I had to figure out what my approach would be, talk to people who could give me good guidance in that, and then bring me forward. And then I went ahead and took the leap and actually nailed it. And that's what I did in that paradigm. We'll take one more, and then we will have some time for questions, because I actually want to spend some time with you guys in conversation. So the last is the transition, the transition of experiencing the death of a partner. The death of a partner that's unexpected. What do you do now? That was never the plan. And you're left in a situation where everything is in a hailstorm, from just getting through the business of death to figuring out how you're going to move forward. And so your value set conversation is a little bit different. If there are children involved, you are now the main parent, and you need to reset what's important for yourself and what's important for those kids, and determine what are the action items in any acquisitions that are going to support that value set. You absolutely now are setting your new priorities now. You had a plan with your partner that may or may not be able to be actualized because it was a family plan, and that person has been taken from you to time and eternity and is no longer here. And so now you're looking at, what do I do? How do I do it? Finally, you're looking at the practicality of your situation. Do you need to move? Can you afford to stay in where you're staying? What is happening? What limitations are involved in upending your living situation, if any? Is that going to be a problem? I'm just naming a few things. There's many more probably there, but a few. How are you going to approach it now? If you have children, you are now both people in one. And so now you need to reorient in terms of how you're responding to their requests, financial requests, and how you're going to roll those into your budget as a family. And of course, the goal is emotionally, psychologically, and physically to come to a place where you feel you can move on. But when you take these 3 Ps, every time you have any type of transition in your life, and you take yourself here first, then how you do that is just a manner of process. Whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, whatever works well for you, creating that living budget, but you've done the hard work in the beginning to really make that happen. And that is a plan that I have used. I'm sharing it with you. It is a plan that I use with individuals working with me in the Financial Clarity Academy when we're building and we're planning and we're growing.